Satisfied or FSG out? Liverpool fans, today I'm here to talk about our club and to talk about the opinions and divisions within our fan base, to try to present it in the most impartial and fair view, whilst also presenting my argument and my take on where we are as a club. I'll be focusing on the opinions of the fans, on the owners, and on the club direction. So we have an overall image of what do the fans really think of the club. Are we actually doing as well as we think? Or are there problems that are being ignored? Should we be FSG out? Should we try to go out and say, get out you American investors, you've got no passion? Is that really true? Or should we be a little bit more considerate? In this analysis, we'll be looking at several arguments in terms of transfers, the spend, the timing of transfers, the success rate, the contract situation, to then build an overall view on our club. What is going on? So let's begin first of all with the fact there are disagreements in our fan base. Luckily, we are not Manchester divided, and we don't have two opposing factions who hate each other and do not understand each other. We have a fan base which is welcome and pleasant, and there are fantastic opinions out there. I would say that the biggest part of the fans are satisfied with the club. Most Liverpool fans are very happy with where we are. In terms of trophies, the Premier League, the Champions League, last season a League Cup, challenging for the title and top of the league now. We all know how right now we are top of the league. Best defensive record in the league. That is fantastic. That is truly amazing of where we are right now and how well we've done. This video has been recorded before the Chelsea game, but as it stands, top of the league, we could not ask for a better start, as well as in the cup competitions, 3 wins in 3. But this is far broader than just a short term, because I'm pretty sure every single Liverpool fan is satisfied with the club in the short term. What I'm talking about is generally the fans who are satisfied with the club direction and the owners in the past 2, 3, 4, 5 years, where we have been in terms of a more long-term trajectory. And there's a lot of reasons to be very satisfied. We won the Premier League ending a 30-year drought. We added 6 Champions Leagues. We've won in total 7 trophies in this time. Jurgen Klopp has been one of the best managers in our history. Not the best, by the way. Contrary to some opinion and mainstream media, he's by far not our best manager, but he's had a fantastic time. Arne Slot's walked in and done things brilliantly, and we look like we're set for a Premier League title challenge. But there are also very strong reasons why certain fans, like for instance Craig Holden from Anfield Agenda, and also myself, are not entirely satisfied with where we are as a club, and in particular the owners. For me, the overarching picture is we've not won a Champions League or Premier League since 2020. So we spent 4 years and we've only won 3 cups. I say only 3 cups, that's fantastic. But we are Liverpool Football Club, and in my opinion, and in the opinion of many fans, our standard is our peak. It's our prime, it's what we were before in the 80s and those years when we were winning Champions League and Premier League, like literally on and on. That is the standard, is to be at that level. And we have not been at that standard in the past few years. The fact we've finished 3rd and 5th in the last 2 seasons tells you everything. We have not even been the second best team in the Premier League recently. There's clearly been a drop-off. We went from being the best team in the world, winning the Club World Cup, winning the Champions League, the Premier League, in the circumstances, 99 points as well. We went from that to last season and then that embarrassment where we finished 5th. Something has dropped off. We're not at that level. And of course, I so much hope that we will rectify this and this season will be redemption. But there's undeniable evidence that we have declined from those years. And I think that's why people like myself and also Craig from Anfield Agenda, we are dissatisfied with what the club has done in terms of the lack of ambition, the lack of spend, making transfers at the wrong time, not signing the right players, being cheap, so on and so on. We will get to this later. And we also have the FSG outers, who I would kind of classify under the umbrella term of not satisfied. You've got people who are openly saying FSG, Fenway Sports Group, out. So as in owners out, get them out. They've got no ambition, they're using Liverpool as a cash cow just to extract profits. Quite a harsh opinion, we'll get to it later. So let's begin our analysis, and it's only fair to begin with transfers, because by far and large, the biggest reason to our drop-off in these years has been transfers. In 2020, we had arguably the best squad in the world. We obviously won the Champions League before that. We had some of the best players in the world. Clearly now we're not in the same position, or otherwise we would have won the Champions League and the Premier League. So why have we dropped off? Why has a world-class team now become just a very good team? Clearly the players who have left and the players who have joined in, there's been a mismatch and there's been a drop-off even in the players who we already have. Salah is not in his prime. We don't have Sadio Mane. We don't have Roberto Firmino, Fabinho, Henderson in his prime, Gini Wijnaldum. Matip is no longer at his Matip is no longer at his levels. Even Robertson and Trent are not quite in their peak. So let's first have a look in terms of spend. Now, when we talk about spend, a lot of Liverpool fans do not like to talk about this. I've talked to some Liverpool fans and mentioned the word spend and received some very negative feedback. Because simply put, Liverpool fans know that spend isn't about us. We try to be productive and use money efficiently. So therefore, spend is an irrelevant metric. But nonetheless, for me, I do think that both net spend and spend are quite important metrics to evaluate how much money are you actually putting into that squad. Because in our modern day and era, you need to spend to be successful. Unfortunately, regardless of the sentimentality we attach to football, regardless of the love we have for the football as a sport, it is also a business, and you need to put investment into any business to make it successful. So looking at the spend, all right, in 2023, so the season where we had our big rebuild, we spent £94 million. This summer, we had a net spend of £42.8 million, but it was actually a profit. So we took a profit of £42.8 million this summer. And in the January window, we also did not spend anything. So in terms of 2024, it was the second lowest net spend after Manchester City. Let's delve a little bit deeper. Transfer Market Premier League spend stats. In the last 2 years, our total spend places us in 12th, net spend in 8th. So in total spend, we are spending very little. In net spend, a little bit more relatively. Since 1920, total spend 11th. Since 1920, not as in the past century. Since the 1920 season, total spend 11th place, net spend 9th. And we're the lowest among the top 6 clubs. So all the clubs like, Newcastle, Chelsea, Man United, Arsenal, all above us by quite large distances. We're massively away from them, spending almost half of what Arsenal and Man City, probably a third of what Chelsea and City spend. So we're basically spending a lot less than Chelsea and United, all these clubs. And that is not a bad thing, right? I present you all these stats and it might seem a bit overwhelming. What does it mean? But we are mid-table in terms of net spend, which is fine. Being efficient, being successful is fundamental to who we are. It was fundamental to our success when we first began our rebuild, 2015 to 2019, when Klopp obviously did this phenomenal rebuild. Julian Edwards, the phenomenal recruitments, the genius signings of Firmino, Mane, Salah, Fabinho, the list goes on. We did spend then. We put in the money and we spent and we became great. Now's the question of, all right, we've built this team, let's keep it up. And since then, obviously we haven't. We've dropped off from where we were. And looking at the spend, it's quite low. For a team who wants to win the Champions League and the Premier League again, you kind of expect the club to be spending. You don't want to just win something and then step back and just let the team be. You want to keep on getting better and better and better, pushing yourself forward to become historic. And clearly the spend suggests that. And it also aligns to who we've been signing. We've not wanted to spend big money on a striker. We spent money on Nunez and that's it. We didn't really want to spend money on a proper expensive DM, who we really needed, or on centre-back as a future long-term replacement for Van Dijk, or in other positions. So clearly we have been a bit careful on the spend, which is not a problem. Again, it is not a problem. Spend is just part of the picture. By no means whatsoever am I just going to sit here and rely on spend alone to explain our failures. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This is just a part of the picture I'm trying to present here. Then in terms of net spend 2015 to 2024, amongst all clubs in the world, Liverpool are 17th. 17th with minus 366 million, below the top 6, Bournemouth, Aston Villa, Newcastle and other big clubs. So what we see the picture is, we spend little, we are very efficient, we know how to keep ourselves financially stable. That is fantastic. And what the satisfied people will tell you, the Liverpool fans who are very satisfied with the owners and the club, They will tell you that we are just being financially stable. We're trying to protect our finances to not go into this debt like many other clubs like Chelsea and United. We do want to be sustainable, and our current business model is very commendable because we are earning decent profits. We are a very healthy club financially. My counter argument is, if we are so financially stable, if everything is so amazing in terms of our financial stability, why could we not spend a little bit more? Because I find it so interesting how we're so low down the rankings in terms of spend. And yet, I can tell you so many times we should have spent. We should have spent money in 2020 to sign a centre-back. We went with Kabak and Ben Davies, and obviously then had a defensive calamity, right? Then, in 2022, we needed to spend on a midfielder. We didn't. We gave Henderson a new contract and decided to get Arthur Melo on loan. We didn't spend, we paid the price later on. 2023, again, my opinions were always that we should spend money on an attacker. Let's upgrade our attack and bring in some more top class quality. Next season, you could argue our attack kind of let us down. In the big moments, we missed chances and we didn't capitalize on the moment to really elevate our squad. And it's always a very complicated debate about Jude Bellingham and whether or not we could have gotten him. But there's just so many examples of these fantastic players, Lenny Yoro, Jude Bellingham, Romeo Lavia, where we just didn't put the spend to get them. We just didn't. We didn't spend on them to get them. And that is quite concerning. If we want to be the best team in the world, you need to go for the best players. It's very symbolic how any expensive signing, any big signing, you've got Manchester United in the conversation, PSG, City, Real Madrid, but never Liverpool. For some reason, it's taken by default that we can't spend a lot, when in the end, we can. We can spend a little bit more and still be financially stable. But that's an interesting topic, a lot of division there. Then we move on to the timing of transfers. So the way I think of timing of transfers is proactive and reactionary signings. So a proactive signing is a signing that goes strength to strength, where you've already got strength in the position, but you want to reinforce. So a classical example is the signing of Luis Diaz in that winter of our quadruple chasing season. We didn't need to sign another attacker. We already had a lot of attackers, but we signed Luis Diaz to give us a boost. And also, we were mindful that Sadio Mane was going to leave in the summer, right? Sadio Mane informed Klopp the year before that he wants to leave next year. So the signing of Luis Diaz was very smart because he gave us a boost that season, but he also then brilliantly transitioned into next season. And it was only a very unfortunate injury that stopped him from further progressing. But that's just very unlucky. He's not an injury-prone player. He literally wasn't injured the entirety of last season. So we have to consider that this specific injury that he had, where he had surgery, that was a one-off, which he has cured and moved on from, and since then shown fantastic form. I would also say Havertz with Arsenal. Kai Havertz was not a needed signing for Arteta back then. You already had the likes of Jesus and Trossard and other players. Yeah, of course, going out there and getting another attacker to further elevate your team. And now look at it. Havertz is the starting guy because he's just gone so much better. And he's elevated the team. He's elevated Arsenal attack to a world-class level where you do not need Gabriel Jesus anymore. He's a bench option. Arsenal moved past Jesus. And then you've got also reactionary signings. So reactionary signings is when you react to something. So a player leaves and you sign someone in replace. You get a stopgap, some players declining and you replace them. So a classical example is our midfield rebuild in 2023. We only signed a midfielder when our midfield basically all left, right? Because Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain left, Naby Keita left, James Milner left, Fabinho left, Henderson left. And then we started to rebuild the midfield. It wasn't like we were actually planning beforehand and planning it out and trying to build this midfield in advance so it's a smooth transition. We didn't sign a midfielder. We wait. Disastrous season, absolute calamity. Midfield's rubbish that season 22-23. Finished 5th place, and then we start signing midfielders. This is a classical example of reactionary signings. We are reacting to already decline and players leaving, rather than thinking ahead. And if you want to be a successful club, you need to be making more proactive signings. We should have been proactive in 2022 and went out there and signed a midfielder as backup to Fabinho and Henderson. Even in 2021, when Gini Wijnaldum left, we should have thought about this. I know we signed Thiago before, but is Thiago really a replacement for Gini Wijnaldum? No, it was a very wise idea to think about those future replacements. And that is a problem, unfortunately, for us. There are obviously disagreements here. The classical counter argument is the right players were available, right? It's very difficult to make the right signing of the right player because we have to sign someone who meets our criteria. We can't just go out there and start splashing cash on these proactive signings when we might not need them, right? We've got to manage the squad. We can't just keep signing attackers like Chelsea because then we're going to have squad issues. We're going to have a ridiculous wage bill. The players who are already there will be unhappy. So there is validity to that. But equally, the question of the midfield rebuild is a joke, right? You can't wait years and not find a midfielder. This was quite obvious and is something that should have been picked up on. And whether or not this was more of a club problem, him not seeing it, whether or not it was a recruitment team problem, there were obviously issues there, how, we had Michael Edwards who left, then Julian Ward came in for a year, he left. And then we had that kind of strange time where we had George Schmatke and he left. So we had this very strange time when we didn't really know what we were doing in terms of recruitment team. And that, I think, undeniably damaged the timing of transfers. And then we can move on to the nature of transfers. Obviously, there's no denying that our transfer success rate has decreased. So 2015-2019, we signed a number of world-class players who made us the best team in the world. Clearly, the past few years has not been the case, right? We've not been able to sign another Sadio Mane, another Roberto Firmino. Possibly Gravenberch is a future Fabinho, but not yet. We haven't been quite able to sign the players of that caliber. Darwin Nunez is in the end a transfer limitation, right? We kind of messed up. We went out there and spent a lot of money, £85 million, with add-ons on a player who wasn't really proven in the top league. And now we see why. He hasn't got the confidence and ability to perform in the top league under pressure. Gakpo was never a world-class signing. He's a very decent player, but there's nothing really about him that suggests world-class. As in, he's going to be that future Mane-esque goal scorer, link-up play, whatever it is. He hasn't been that. We've also not really thought about centre-back, trying to think of that future generational centre-back talent to replace Virgil van Dijk. We seem to be quite praying that Kanate and Kwanzaa will come good, rather than being proactive and adding more reinforcements. And you also can talk about right wing, right? Right wing has always been a problem because Salah is the best right wing in the world, but we need someone in backup. Because when he's away or he's injured or we need to rotate him, it's always very difficult to find someone in backup. And it's really only this summer we signed Chiesa, which kind of addresses this problem. Because Chiesa is a backup to Salah. He can play on the right. So now we do have an actual attacker who can play right winger. Whereas last season we've had to put Harvey Elliott in right wing, who wasn't really a right winger. His best position is midfielder, and we've seen this time and time and again. His best assets and quality are dribbling, passing, link-up play, pressure and energy. It's not really the finishing which he's all about. Gakpo maybe played that didn't really work out. Neither did Diaz or Jota because they're right-footed, they're not left-footed. So they don't really work on that side either that much. So the transfers themselves have obviously some question marks next to them. We can talk about the recruitment team not being top quality, and I think rightly so. A lot of people do point out that the recruitment team is largely to blame for this. It's not really fair to go out and say it's all on the owners, because in the end, right, we did have some turmoil in terms of the recruitment officers' positions, and Jurgen Klopp then had more control, and arguably some of Jurgen Klopp's ideas and signings didn't really work out. He thought apparently that we didn't need a midfielder, but we did. So there were mistakes made there, and it's not fair just to blame it all on the owners. But then let's move on. Before we move on to contract situations, just to kind of round up on all of this, right? We've got the question of spend, timing of transfers, and nature of transfers. I think the three areas which I think we were limited in, three areas where we lacked, and as a result, overall, the team hasn't been able to reach its heights that it has in 2020. Now, obviously, the people who are the more satisfied people who want to I'm not going to say back the club or the owners, but more like the people who defend the owners and the club, there are a lot of them, by the way. A lot of Liverpool fans are like this. They want to really defend the club and the owners. They don't want to admit that the club and the owners do something wrong in a footballing sense. And they seem to always talk about spend. We don't want to be like Chelsea. We don't want to be like United. We want to be financially stable. We can't just go out and sign random players. But my answer always is that look, we don't have to be like them. We can be reasonable like Arsenal, spend a decent amount of money, sign the right players at the right time by spending. It's not just a question of total spend, right? It's a question of when you spend. So the overall picture is we've not been spending enough. We've not been really spending at the right time. So we've been bringing in players too late. And equally, we also probably should have went for better players. And then these defenders will tell you that, oh, who would you sign? Tell us, who other DM would you sign? And I can't really answer that question. I'm not a scout. I don't know if Manu Kone, Kepren Thuram, I don't know if they're good enough. I'm not a scout. And I think that that's the responsibility of the club and of the scouts to go out there and actually find those players. And that's probably been the most kind of strange thing about this, is that a lot of Liverpool fans who want to defend the owners of the club, they seem to always ask the question, well, who would you sign as a DM? What other DM could you have found, right? We missed out on Caicedo, Lavia, Zubimendi, largely because they turned us down, right? Caicedo and Tchouaméni and Zubimendi all turned us down. Arguably not our fault, it's more of a question of choice, and they found other options which they liked more for various reasons. But then I'm saying sign someone else. And then the counter argument is who? Well, I can't really come up with a counter argument because I know that Liverpool's transfer criteria are very high. We never sign a player just for the sake of a signing. We need to sign a player who will reach our in terms of the potential levels, the age levels. We don't want to sign players who are excessively young or too old. We need to sign players who will develop and prosper at Liverpool, who have the right attributes defensively, offensively. And I do think it's very hard as a fan to come up with answers. But what certainly I can say is that we've got so many scouts and recruitment officers. They should be finding many options. You can't be going into a transfer window, this summer window, just with Zubimendi in mind. You need to go in with several options. One fails, you go for the other. Other fails, go for the other. You can't just have a plan A and then no plan B. Because ultimately, I look at our team now and I'm like, yeah, could use one more midfielder, one more just to back up McAllister and Gravenberch, because I don't think Endo nor Jones are convincing backups. Endo doesn't really fit the manager's system. It's no secret that we were thinking of selling him. And then Jones was never top class. He was never meant to be that top class player, which he isn't, unfortunately, right now. Let's now move on to the contract situations in terms of Trent, Van Dijk and Salah. All three contracts ending this summer, unfortunately. Massive problem for Liverpool. What do we do? So for one hand, most fans are very angry, dissatisfied. My personal stance, it's embarrassing, it's terrible planning. Are we being cheap again, trying to get a cheaper deal out of this? Is it just a case of the recruitment team being a complete mess? Clearly, this recruitment team mess with George Matke coming in and out. We've not really had a proper structure in place, and we've not been able to really make use of it yet. And that's why this new structure is now trying to make things right and sort out those contracts. So let's talk about each individual players, because you've got a very interesting dynamic. From one hand, you've got the more angry fans like myself, and then you've got other Liverpool fans who try to make it look a bit better. Let's talk about first Trent. If he leaves, in my opinion, he's a traitor. It's an embarrassment and it's a betrayal. 26-year-old, in his prime, Scouser, the future Steven Gerrard, he's won things with us, he wants to be the captain, already the vice captain, right? How can he leave now? That is such a blow to Liverpool, to lose our talisman, our treasure player, our gem, to go on a free. And the way he goes on a free is a slap in the face of Liverpool. And surely that completely invalidates all of Trent's talk about Liverpool and captaincy. If you want to go hunt for trophies, you're not hunting for glory at Liverpool. You're not really exhibiting the true characteristics of what you were all about. That future Steven Gerrard player. If that isn't appealing enough to you, then adios, I don't give a damn, move on. Right? I'm no respect then for him. Absolutely no respect. Disrespectful. I'm not going to go on and start defending him. I'm going to be very clear. I will criticize him. He's a traitor. I hope Madrid lose everything, and I hope we beat them many times to prove how he was wrong. Disgraceful if he does that. And then you've got the other Liverpool fans who are more like, well, he's already won everything. He wants to try something new, blah, blah, blah. Nah. Personally, I'm not having that. I'm not having the argument. Just because he's won everything doesn't mean anything. If he wants to be that future Steven Gerrard, which he apparently wants to, Alright, he goes up and kisses the camera, says I want to be captain, the Scouser. I mean, you are living the dream. You are a Scouser, vice captain of Liverpool, one of our best players. You are the future captain. You are the future Steven Gerrard. And are you now going to start talking about, oh yeah, I want to go to Madrid and win more trophies? Come on, man. Is that really the way we go about things? Trying to find the glory way out? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm not having this. Then Mohamed Salah. In my opinion, best right wing in the world. Clearly, he's still phenomenal this season. In the league, 4 goals, 4 assists. In total, 6 goals, 5 assists across all comps. He's still excellent. He's still brilliant. One of our best attackers. Arguably our best attacker. And there's no replacement for him. Right? We can't get a replacement unless we want to spend tremendous amounts of money on someone like Rodrigo, who probably doesn't want to leave. Hypothetically, if we had 300 million, we'd give Arsenal 200 million and get Saka. But that's like purely hypothetically. It's not happening. So my argument is Salah is too good, he can't leave. But then the other kind of counter argument is he's already in decline. It's time to move on anyways. He's already been showing some kind of strange behavior, being a bit frustrated, that famous incident with Klopp at West Ham, showing some signs of frustration. And the idea is that, look, all 3 are leaving is the biggest disaster. If he leaves but the other 2 stay, it's not the worst thing, is it? Right? If he leaves, come on, he's already 32. It's not the end of the world if he leaves now, because we could find someone else. We could work on future talent. That argument, in my opinion, does not make any sense. Because just because all 3 leaving is a disaster does not mean that Salah leaving is not a disaster. Any one of these 3 players leaving will be a tremendous blow to our team because they are our 3 most important players. And Salah leaving takes out a massive chunk from our attack because this man's ability to deliver season to season to season is incredible. And I'm not sure, in fact, I'm certain we do not have what it takes to actually cover for him across the entire season. There's no one like him. And trying to pretend like it's fine is just creating false illusions. It's just creating false illusions that it's alright if he leaves because it could be worse. And then Van Dijk, not much to say because he's expected to stay. And I think all Liverpool fans will agree that he has to stay. No debate there. Let's now move on to the FSG-outers. I mentioned this briefly before in the introduction. But what do the FSG-outers think? And by the way, there are not that many of them, I believe. I actually don't think that many Liverpool fans are like this. I think a lot of them are satisfied, some are dissatisfied, some are kind of in the middle, and you do have some FSG-outers who believe that the owners have got no ambition and desire. They're not putting in the spend, they always choose the cheap option, right? And I don't want to take this from Craig from Anfield Agenda, but he does raise a good point that these owners always want to go for the cheap option. Because if they truly had ambition and desire, why not go out and spend the money on the right players? Why not go out and spend the money on someone like Lenny Yoro, on Jude Bellingham, on another backup midfielder, on a centre-back? And yet for some reason all we keep hearing is excuses. Excuses. We couldn't find the right one, he declined us, there are no other good backups out there, blah blah blah. But then you really think about it in deep as, so there were no other DMs available. So there are no defensive midfielders available out there who we could have signed. Like, that's it, they're not available. It's almost like some Liverpool fans create these justifications, which I talked about in my video about our transfers before. How you got these justifications we make up, right? And those justifications try to make our decision look better. We have a positive net profit in the season where we're meant to move forward. Justification, Arne Slot wants to work with the squad. It's the right decision, the team is already very good. Why disrupt the team balance, make it move forward? There was no one out there in the market. So Arne Slot would not want to add backup centre-back, which clearly we need in case we have an injury crisis. Arne Slot does not want backup in midfield, although it is so clear that we've got not enough midfielders. McAllister, Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, Harvey Elliott, Curtis Jones, Endo. Couple injuries to our main players. Who's coming in? Endo? Jones? Are we going to really think that Endo is going to work in our new system? It's clear Slot doesn't want him. He doesn't do very well in this system. Jones? How many more years do we spend on Curtis Jones trying to make him world class? He's a decent player, but are we going to really rely on Curtis Jones as a proper full-on backup? No disrespect to, of course, the Scouser. Or should we be going out and thinking of options like Manu Kone and Edison of Atalanta, and actually trying to take our team from good to excellent, where we can keep rotating players and have so much talent available there that we are protected from injuries? That's my question to that then. That's my question to these people who believe in these justifications. I don't believe in these justifications. I think there's also a case of, I'm not FSG-out myself, by the way. I don't support the FSG-out movement, but I do support the FSG-doubt movement, and to question what our owners have been doing, question the club as a whole in terms of why we're not spending enough, why are we neglecting positions, why are we missing on players all the time, right? But then with FSG-out, there's a very, very complicated argument, because if FSG-out, then who replaces? And that's where, in my opinion, the FSG-out movement collapses. In the sense, it doesn't collapse, but the logic behind it doesn't really work, because this alternatives could be worse, right? Chelsea's Todd Boehly came in and basically crumbled away that club. I'm also a fan of Reading FC, and our owners Dai Young and his family financially devastated the club, who have now been relegated, transfer embargoes, penalty points, disaster. Literally went to a game and again, we clap at the 18th minute. We had 18 worst points of penalties. So it's very painful for us fans when these club owners come in and just start doing all sorts of nonsense. They start to financially ruin your club. So we should never forget that FSG are keeping the club stable. We are doing decent. So we can't just say FSG out and not have a solution. Because what is the solution? Todd Boehly-like owners who will destroy us financially? Saudi owners who will ruin the nature of this club? Do we want Anfield to become the next Etihad or the next Emirates or something like that? No, we are more than that. We're far bigger than that. The club organization is important. We can't just think of, yes, get Saudi owners, spend 300 million, 400 million every summer, we'll win everything. That's not the Liverpool way. And if you don't have a problem with that, if you think that having Saudi owners and spending 500 million a season is fine, I think you need to understand what Liverpool FC is all about. So let's now go to the conclusion. A very long podcast this was, hence the timestamps, but let's take a conclusion on this big and thorough analysis. It all comes down to a question of standards, right? If for you, top 4 is enough, be financially stable, right? We came from being completely rubbish. Now we're quite good. We've won something. We've won titles. We've won Champions League. We've won trophies. We're doing very well. So be satisfied. Why should you not be satisfied? But if your standards are like mine and Craig's from Anfield Agenda, if your standards are winning titles and Champions League like in our prime, of course you'll not be satisfied. Of course, 4 years without any title or Champions League will not be sufficient for someone as greedy as myself, because I do want to see us winning titles. I want to see us winning titles. I want to see us second place at least. We're not even second place. We've dropped off. I want us to be second place, right there with City, knocking down Arsenal and beating City and winning titles. And I really hope we'll do this season. I hope, I believe, and I think we'll do well. My expectations for this very difficult run of games is very positive. I'm certain we will do well. I'm certain we'll prove ourselves. We will prove a point. But in terms of this whole kind of debate I've had, this whole argument, it's all a matter of perspective. There's no right or wrong. There's no such thing as bad opinions. In the end, we all Liverpool fans want the best for our club, even if it's in slightly different ways, because we do have different viewpoints and it's important to always respect these opinions. So please do subscribe to the channel, YouTube channel. Please subscribe, leave a comment, give a like on the YouTube. And of course, let me know in the comments, what do you think of this? I do want to hear what people think as well. So it's not just a matter of me saying things and hearing nothing in response. So let me know what you think. I wish you all the best, and I hope you have a great time. See you soon.